Friday, July 25th, 2025 meeting of the Pollution Control and College. Here.
Al Eckert, Richard Goodbond,
Here.
Thomas McWilliams,
Here.
Rusty Moss,
Here.
Wes Ward. Have a quorum.
Ron, that's Alex Johnston.
Huh?
That is not Wes Ward down at the end of the table. That is Commissioner Ward's, Secretary Ward's replacement, Alex Johnson.
Mr. Johnson is Chief of Staff for the Department of Agriculture. He's sitting in for Secretary Ward today. We need to approve the minutes for the April 25th meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second. All raise hand to approve. Pass. Now, Secretary of Energy and Environment, Shane Brewer, wants to say a few words.
Good morning. It's been a while since I've had the opportunity to come and visit with y'all. It's been so long that I told Commissioner McWilliams, who used to be an Oil and Gas Commission member, that first time I've seen him, he's already advanced the roles up to chairman. So I guess it has been a while.
Yes.
Since I've been here. I also have several new members since I've been here. I just wanted to kind of give you an update on some of the things going on in the department. First of all, on the energy side, specifically on the oil and gas side, some great news there that commission has taken some actions to set some regulatory, boundaries, and then take some regulatory actions to ensure that the lithium production can move forward in South Arkansas. We're excited about that. On our DEQ side, one of the things that we're proud of and that we're working through the process on is a new, not really new, but we're moving more and more of our permits to an online portal called SEEK, which we believe is going to streamline processes for regulated entities, allow more online applications. That we also have some new signature verifications and things where you can apply wholly online, streamlining our processes, trying to make our permitting process more user-friendly, more effective, more transparent for all involved. So we're happy about that. Also, next week, sometime next week, a lot of the bills from the legislative session will become effective, those that didn't have emergency clauses or a specific date. And I realized in preparation for this that we never really had an update post-session about how our legislative package went at the department level. So I was going to kind of just give you a quick overview of that. We had basically, I would say, 11 proposals, department proposals, that were adopted successfully, that we got through the process. A lot of those were cleanup of old programs, changing of different programs that were obsolete at this point in time. But I think overall we had a great session and we're a very successful session. One area where I think everybody in this room understands that we were to get ours out of the House, but couldn't get through the Senate. Senator Payton and a few others had a different version, and they were able to get out of the Senate, but not out of the House. So long story short, we went through another session without any resolution to our used tire program, but the governor did allocate some one-time money to help that program through the next few years as we continue to have this discussion and dialogue with those tire programs. Ideally, that money was to be used for abatement. Obviously, anytime we're spending more dollars than we have, that extra money is going to go to make up that deficit. So I don't know how much abatement we're actually going to get to do. We're kind of in the planning stages of that, of trying to model out the next few years of the used tire program as a whole. But obviously, we will try to do some abatement with that money, as well as making sure that the tire program makes it through the process. So with that, out of that session, so some of these based on our bill, some of these based on other interested party bills. We have several different rulemakings that we've identified that will need to be done out of session. I think we have 9 or so total that we've identified. One of them is specifically for the LP gas board, one of the boards in our department. We basically had had a statute that changed some old and repealed some old antiquated, outdated language to allow that board to adopt some of the national model standards more easily so they can keep with modern technology and the modern practices. So that was a good bill, I think, and looking forward to that rulemaking. On the oil and gas side, specifically, two things that we did. We had some enabling legislation that would allow and clarify the Oil and Gas Commission can seek primacy for a Class 6 program, which is underground sequestration of CO2. There's a lot of movement. Louisiana recently received primacy. I think there are 5 or 6 states that have received primacy. So that's one of the things we're working on at the department level as well, will be proposing rulemaking for that. Kind of along the same lines, there's a PHMSA program that deals with regulations of hazardous liquid pipelines. These would be only intrastate, not interstate pipelines. But CO2 is considered a hazardous liquids under PHMSA definition. So it's kind of a sister, I guess, a rule to that same type of thing, to be able to regulate CO2 at the department level, at least the sequestration, the piping of it from where it needs to go, things like that. So moving forward, those things, this commission specifically, I think we've identified about 6 different rule packages that you'll see over the next several months, early into next year, that will be a result of changes that were made. Like I said, some of these were based on changes in our bills and our proposals at the department level, some of them from outside industry groups that had an impact as well. So just to quickly highlight those, for the landfill post-closure trust fund, actually we have identified an area where it's actually in our appropriation bill where there's some special language that was changed a few years ago, but the rule, which is specifically formerly known as Rule 22, I'm not used to calling them by cards yet, but I'll eventually get there. 8 CAR 60, I think, and then Rule 11, which is now 8 CAR 61. Basically, there's a little bit of a conflict from the special language in the rule, so we'll be amending that rule to match the special language coming up. The Wastewater Licensing Committee, this is one of those committees that kind of in an effort overall looking at the structure of our boards and commissions and overall reducing those numbers. This was a 5-person board that sometimes we always had a hard time getting 5 to actually be there. So we've reduced that from a 5-member board to a 3-member board. Of those, y'all actually appoint 2 of them, but the rule itself still reflects a 5-member board. So we'll be bringing a rule amendment to correct the board size of that one as well. There was a lithium battery waste tax credit. This is part of a bill that we worked on with Commerce and others, but it's really for the incentivized production and processing for lithium in South Arkansas. But there is an amendment that will be need to be made to the solid waste definition to add electronic waste, lithium ion batteries, and battery packs to that definition. So that will be kind of a minor rule amendment coming forward. Petroleum Storage Tank Trust Fund. These were not necessarily our bills, but there are 2 changes that will need to be made. If you remember in 2023 session, there was an overall amendment that increased the maximum payment of this fund from $1.5 million to $2 million. Well, it's one of those things where that was changed basically in all parts of the statute, except for one that's still left a $1.5 million in there. So I would say that was cleanup legislation, but also our rule reflects that. So it will have to be updated to incorporate that change. And then there was another one dealing with the Petroleum Storage Tank Trust Fund with the deductible. As y'all may know, the deductible has been $7,500 for a long period of time. There was some interest in different groups of maybe changing that deductible. So the law was changed to basically say that it'll be something more than $7,500 and less than $30,000 will be the new deductible. But that statute now gives this commission the authority to promulgate a rule to establish what the deductible is and under what circumstances it will be. So I know that on the DEQ side and on their side, they're kind of working up a rule proposal that will eventually come, after it's time to before this commission as well. One other industry group, or I guess maybe came out of some interest of some legislators and industry, but is dealing with industrial wastewater management, industrial wastewater. There were some changes of some of the penalties for violations of that, so that on the Division of Environmental Quality side, they are required to impose a statutory max for certain violations. That doesn't necessarily require a rule change, but what does is there was some uncodified language in that act that basically directed us and the department to begin the process of promulgating a rule to authorize a no discharge land application permit of industrial waste. And I know on the DEQ side, specifically in the Office of Water Quality, they've had kind of a work group that has started that process already. So a lot of these, I don't know how much of y'all know this, but a lot of these, we have to start reporting the status in April to the legislature. So our idea will be to have these to you hopefully early next year so that we can, meet that reporting deadline, or at least tell legislature where we are in the process at that point in time. With that, I know y'all have a few other things on your agenda, but I'm happy to ask any questions. I'll also say one of the best things that I think that came out of this legislative session is the pay plan that the governor passed. I don't know how much of you all know this, but at the department level and at the administrative level, for years, we have had a hard time hiring and retaining qualified technical staff. Ecologists, biologists, engineers, geologists, all those. We have some great dedicated people here that have been in state government long-term and do a great job with that. But new people, it is really hard to get them in the door when we were paying them half of what they can make anywhere else. So the ones that we could get in the door, we would hire them, and 3 to 6 months later, they're a revolving door because they were getting better options and opportunities outside of state government. So we were thankful for the work that the governor did and legislature did in that. I think that's going to help us out, hopefully, to not only get them in the door, but maybe keep them in the door. The longer that we can have employees here, the more continuity you have, the better that we can be at our job and our operations. Thank you for your time. And like I said, if you got any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll let you get back to your meeting. And welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your hard work. Next, we need to address an issue that we talked about at the last hearing. I'll turn it over to Judge Mouton.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, Commissioners. Good morning, Commissioner Johnson. Good morning to you as well. I know the commission appreciates your service here this morning. I know that the commission, the body is kind of in a little bit of a state of flux here in terms of changes. But we do traditionally, this is when we pick a vice chair and a chair for the next year. We've been doing that now for the last few years. At one point in time back in the 90s, we were picking them in January, but with changes to the commission and resignations, we've kind of pushed it back to the middle of the year as the years have gone on. I did visit with Commissioner Eckert on Wednesday and asked him if he would be amenable to being chair. His term, Commissioner Eckert's term, technically ends in March of next year. Commissioner Ross's term technically ends in March of next year. And Commissioner McWilliams' term has technically already ended. But in visiting with both Chair Eckert as well as Vice Chair McWilliams, both are receptive to the idea of serving in their roles, the continuation of those roles. So what the commission needs to do is make a motion to approve that, both the chair as well as the vice chair as it exists right now with a second. And if one of the commissioners would be willing to do that, well, we can move on forward.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to reappoint the chair and vice chair as they currently stand.
Thank you. All right, you have a motion from motion and a second. All in favor? I'm sorry? Moss made the second. All in favor, show of hands. There's some background on this. We typically do a voice vote, Commissioner McWilliams, but the Oil and Gas Commission does a show of hands. So that's what he's used to. So that's why we're doing it here this morning. All right. Thank you all very much. Vice Chair, I'll turn it back over to you.
Now we'll have the Chief Administrator report. Lady Taylor.
Good morning. Good morning. So the last time that we updated you on the Town, Arkansas air monitoring study and procurement, we were in the final stages of that procurement, and that contract was going to be effective April 1st. And so since then, just to give you an update, we worked with the third-party contractor. They developed the sampling and analysis plan. We were able to review that along with the Department of Health. We're thankful for their contribution there. And then they were able to, the third-party contractor executed that study May 2nd through 11th of this year. Prior to that, on April 29th, we met with some local elected officials just to kind of present the plan and let them know, hey, when you see canisters that look like this in your community or people wearing these shirts in your community, here's what's going on. So we let them know that. We did not announce the dates. We've kind of been pretty controlled on that in order to capture normal activities of that community. And so we did announce that the sampling was commencing that morning. But the elected officials kind of had that heads up for a few days, which was helpful. So this study was 11 days. That includes 2 weekends, the way the days were laid out. And so they monitored over 24 hours, each sample location. The background samples were placed further away than they were at the last study, because if you recall, the background samples at the last study had some of the same concentrations as closer to the fence line. And so we went a little bit further out with our background samples. They also put a weather station on site. So instead of having to use a local airport's weather station, they were able to use on-site metadata and really compare the wind direction and temperature for those specific sample locations. They also did something that we hadn't done before, and that was stand up a hotline. And so if community residents were smelling an odor, then they could call that hotline, and CTEH, the third-party contractor, would go out immediately and take a sample, not a 24-hour sample. It's about an hour-long sample. Grab that sample. They would note wind direction. They would note characteristics that they also observed at those times. And then if no odor complaints were observed in that 24 hours, then they would go to other locations where there had been known odors in previous weeks, so that we could collect as many samples as possible and not just wait if we received a call. So the contract specified that within 90 days of receiving all final validated data from the lab, because all of these samples were sent off to a lab, and then a third party or fourth party validated that data. And so upon receiving that, they have 90 days to send us the final report. And so that's kind of where we are now, just to give you that update. The final report, when we get it, we'll put it on our website. We'll share it out and be very transparent with those results. So that's for Tawny Town. And then just to share with you, we were able to welcome in this room for our EPA Region 6 quarterly meeting. We were able to welcome those Region 6 leaders here. So New Mexico, Louisiana, Texas, unfortunately, could not make it in person. They had a lot going on at the time dealing with those devastating floods. And so they called in, and then our Region 6 administrator, Scott Mason, and some of his staff in Oklahoma, they were all here, and we were hosted here in this room. And so it was great to have them in Arkansas, and proud of the work that we're able to kind of accomplish together, and hear updates from other states, struggles that they're dealing with, and ways to move forward. So those quarterly meetings are always productive and helpful, and we were honored to be able to host them at our great state. Any questions for me? All right, thank you.
Do we have
That'll be a-
issue here of reappointing Shane Ellis?
No, you're going to, sorry, Mr. Vice Chair. Next item on the agenda is the UTP4 matter.
Okay, all right.
That's fine.
I can handle that. So you should have a minute order, and just to summarize a little bit, UTP4 submitted a revised business plan. The processor identified in their current business plan is no longer operating on a reliable basis. And so they're unable to use that processor. And so they issued an emergency procurement to find a new processor. And so that constituted a revised business plan. Since that business plan resulted in a rate increase, we are here before you with a recommendation. Because a business plan with a rate increase has to be approved by the commission as well as the legislative council. So they submitted this revised business plan. It has a total increase rate of $5.01. Their previous rate was $2.90. And so we are recommending a rate of $4.65, and I can explain how we got to that rate. So the $5.01 rate includes passenger tires, large tires, and extra large tires. We did not feel that there was adequate support in order to recommend that extra large tires were an emergency, a public health matter in order to move those. But the amount of passenger and large tires that UTP4 moves on a monthly basis, it's very important that we keep those moving processors and they're not stacking up in businesses or in collection centers that are near residential areas, near other businesses, near, very close proximity to the public. And so we feel it's very important that passenger tires and large tires are kept moving. And so we are recommending $4.65 reimbursement rate for a period of 2 quarters, which would give them time. We've also requested that they issue procurement, go out for procurement under the requirements of state law and try to get some other bids, which may reduce the cost, hopefully. So $4.65 for 2 quarters. It can be extended by me for another 2 quarters, just in case they run into some issues. We'll need that request in writing and justifiable, but we did want to put that in there just in case they run into any issues.
Any questions from commissioners for Ms. Taylor?
I've just got a question, if you don't mind, Chief. So the other 3 districts, is the volume or the type of tires different in UTP4 versus the other 3? Are they significantly, is that why the rate is so high in terms of the reimbursement?
I think it depends on their model. The number of tires that UTP4 processes may be a little bit lower than 1 and 2. I wouldn't say significant difference there, but it's probably the 3rd highest in the amount that they collect and process. So I think it's just the processing and transportation costs of the district.
Just higher for 4 as opposed to the other 3, or no?
Well, are you talking about the 501 rate or their current 290 rate?
No, I'm talking about the new rate that they're suggesting.
Okay,
Is
well,
the-
that
is
I
the
believe is, so they're hauling to Mississippi at this point.
Okay.
Their processor that they were able to procure through emergency procurement, right? Someone available that has the resources to implement something, quickly, they're hauling to Mississippi. So I think that's probably the reason. Going from Jefferson County as your processing, storage, all of that to Mississippi, there's your increased cost.
And the proposal that you have, we're gonna have two quarters of the emergency, but if it's necessary, we're gonna give the secretary the discretion to extend that by 2 other quarters.
Correct.
And how confident are you that this is gonna be addressed in the first 2 quarters?
I feel pretty good. I spoke with District 4 just a moment ago. And so upon approval of the legislatures, assuming we can get there next month, then they're wanting to start this on a new fresh quarter. And so that would be October. So they would have until March in order to execute that procurement. And I feel pretty good about that.
Thank you, Chief. Those are my questions, Vice Chair.
All right. I guess we need a motion to approve her request. Is there a motion? Commissioner Moss has a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Show of hands for vote. It passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, now, to consider mineral for. Right now, this time we'll have public comments. Is Mr. Mark Calcagni here? You'll come. Make sure you speak into the microphone so everyone can hear you.
You're the best.
Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for allowing public comment. I'm Mark Calcagni. I've lived at 12642 Harper Acres Road in Town, Arkansas for 38 years. And I'm going to apologize because I'm going to read because I get so upset and frustrated with this landfill that we have in our city of Town. And one reason I'm going to read is because I don't want to make sure that I don't miss anything. And there's some new ones here. So hopefully this, for some of you, this won't be real redundant because I think you've heard me before. I'm here today representing my family, my neighbors, as I am the Town Air Quality Committee Chairman, approved by the previous mayor, Paul Colvin. Town definitely has a poor air quality and environmental issues due to the landfill there in Town. We have neighbors getting sick, nausea, headaches, dizziness, people going to the emergency room, hospitals, doctors, and different ailments, along with a rash of cancer in the area that we don't feel is coincidental. You know, what do we know? Well, we've had 3 air test results back, 2 from the National Guard and 1 from ADQ CTEH, the previous air test from the one that was just done here in May. All tests showed harmful air quality, various harmful chemicals. The ADQ air test showed benzene and acrolein at 209% and 4,900% above the EPA regional screening levels. Again, benzene was 209% above the EPA regional screening levels, and then acrolein was 4,900% above the regional screening levels. Both are considered carcinogens, which is very bad. No other industry in the area that could, emit this type of chemicals in the air. And this was reported through the ADQ report on that air test. This area is residential. There's no other industry in the area. This is one of the fastest growing areas. Matter of fact, there's 13 subdivisions less than a mile away from this area, and it is growing. We've been to Fort Smith and Little Rock landfills, and there's hardly any houses there. This area is karst and shouldn't have a landfill in this area. We also know that Waste Management did a red dye test that showed up in Wildcat Creek that flows into the Illinois River, which is Oklahoma's water source. We also have had hundreds and hundreds of complaints to the ADQ from citizens with regard to poor air and other issues. We have unfiltered landfill leachate that flows into Town's lift station at South Penalto and Barrington Roads, emitting daily horrible odors, running people out of their homes. No telling what is in the air and in that leachate. Town's #1 citizen, it's a lady that's lived there over 45 years. She has to stay with her daughter sometimes, and it's been on several occasions. And she does so much for the city by providing, meals and cakes and cookies, to the police and fire department. And I would say the #1 citizen in the area. And this bullet point, what we know, this bullet point, which I've scratched my head about, it's regulation 22203 and 22204, which was not followed as the regulation states a host city, Town, must approve a new landfill or expansion. The Town City Council unanimously rejected expansion 3 times with stronger language each time before a decision to expand this landfill. I really have lost all confidence in government, as I always think government is for the people, by the people. And again, I don't understand as I'm a rule follower. The Arkansas Department of Health asked for more testing after benzene and acrolein was found. And thank you, ADQ, for doing the test, the air test, and doing another air test that you'd mentioned earlier that happened here this May. The Arkansas Department of Health asked to do a test on site at Ecovista Waste Management. Not done on this test. ADH asked also to retest the hotspots of the last test. That was not done. The test was supposed to have been unannounced. It was announced in April 1 that there would be a test. And that's when Waste Management altered their operations. We have record where during the test that they didn't run their gas plants. We have record because you can plainly hear those gas plants running. And during that testing period, it probably ran maybe 50% of the time. They stopped running those gas plants. There was a reason for that. We feel this test would be flawed due to that. Again, no other industry in this area, benzene and acrolein, carcinogens. What's it going to take? Death? More emergency rooms, hospital visits, people needing medical attention, or cancer? I hope it's not the $2 million annually that Waste Management pays this department for not doing the right thing by protecting people and environment. Again, I'm here on behalf of my family and the neighbors as the City of Tinytown's Air Quality Committed Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kenneth Lovett.
Good morning. My name is Kenneth Lovett from Washington County. I'd like to make a request first. Ms. Taylor stated that the test would be they would be put out 90 days after the final results. Is that 90 days from after the final results, or is that 90 days from the ending of test? And y'all can work out how we get that or if we get that, but I'd like to request that clarification. The reason why I come, every time ever since I was, I call it attacked by the vapors, because I was just driving down the road. And when you have a heart attack, it's the same difference. As far as results, you can't breathe, your heart skips a beat. There's all kinds of issues that come with it. But I've been coming here 3.5 years to almost every meeting to make y'all aware that we need help. And our regulations are not helping us. The ones that we do have don't fit the bill. They're not proper. They don't cover the things that we need, in my opinion. So I want to go back to the docket number 23-013-P, order number 6. And it had findings of facts as number 4. And number 17 in that finding of facts states, Ecovista continues to adhere to the terms of the 1997 host agreement and make payments to Tinytown, and those payments have been accepted by Tinytown. Those payments are accepted by Tinytown because there was already a contract. That contract had nothing to do with anything current day other than what it says. It don't say we'll quit taking payments because we don't want you here no more. It was a contract said these dates to this date, it will be done. But that was used as part of the findings as far as whether or not to allow the permits to be approved. And the permits still are under appeal. And they almost have those places full already. And that's ridiculous, in my opinion. So I looked up legal context. It said the Administrative Procedure Act, APA 5 U.S.C. 7062A, mandates that courts holding unlawful agency actions found to be arbitrary and capricious and abuse of discretion or otherwise not in accordance with the law. This standard is frequently applied to judicial review of administrative agency actions. And failure to consider relevant factors, the decision maker didn't take into account important aspects of the issue at hand. That's my opinion, sir. But if you don't take care of your people that's living there, the people's not gonna be living there long. Where they gonna go? They gonna leave or they gonna die? Department of Ecology and whatever, ADEQ, we need people to do their jobs. My life depends on it. Mark's life depends on it. And our families do too.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Does anyone else like to speak, make a public comment? All right, Randy Hopper with the Solid Waste Licensing Committee. We'll hear from her. Or,
Hey, good morning, Commissioners. Obviously, I am not Randy Harper. I am Jennifer Parslow, the Executive Secretary of the Solid Waste Licensing Committee. Mr. Harper could not be here today. So what we have for you today is a request to reappoint Shane Ellis to the position he currently holds on the Solid Waste Licensing Committee for a second term.
any questions from commissioners? We have a motion to reappoint Mr. Shane Ellis.
Make a motion to reappoint Mr. Ellis.
Second. All show of hands for approval or pass.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. All right, well, that wraps it up. We thank everybody for attending. We are adjourned.
We got a minute order that needs to be circulated, so I think we've got one right here as well.